Welcome to another episode of Studious External Podcast. I'm your host Jay Hill with my co-host Shane Feek. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. So tonight we have a really good show. Medium Valentina Marie is with us, and um, I was reading through her bio, and she's lived an amazing life, and I am really interested in getting into some of the things that has happened to her in her lifetime. She's she's been an actress, a model. Um, she's lived in lots of different places. She resides in Florida. She's an active medium. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get her on and let's get to talking to her. Hey,
Hello.
hello, welcome. We really appreciate you coming on, Valentina. It's just been, I've followed, some of your stuff on Facebook and stuff for a while now, and I think that the work that you do with your mediumship is wonderful.
Thank you.
You help a lot of people.
Thank you.
So yeah. So for my audience who don't know, well, they should be under a rock if they don't know who you are. But um, but go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do now and we'll get into the story of your life, which is interesting. I read it on your bio, and oh my gosh, I mean that's just some of the things that
It's
you
a
you
lot.
had go. Yeah, it is. So yeah, just go ahead and introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about what you do right now, and go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone listening. My name is Valentina, and I go by the Danish medium. That's my moniker, I guess, because I'm not from New Jersey and I'm not from Long Island, so I have to be my own. But
Yeah.
we have some notifications going on. All right, we'll ignore those. Yes, so I have lived all over the world. I'm originally from Copenhagen, Denmark, and I have literally lived all over. And now I live in Florida. I have been here for the past 8 years and just have been literally, I didn't know how I was living before that in Los Angeles and didn't really know how the move was going to be, but my guides told me to come here. It was between Austin, Texas, and here. And all of a sudden, I got this message move to Florida. So I did. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. Did I make a mistake to move all the way across America? And within 10 days, people were calling me for readings, and my furniture had not even gotten here yet. People are sitting on the floor.
Oh
There's no
no.
furniture. And I was like, I think I'm going to be okay because, people are already calling me. And now it's 8 years in the making, and I have not stopped working. So I feel really blessed. And it was a good move to come here. And I'm just really happy to do what I do.
Hmm.
Very
Yeah.
good.
So talk a little bit about when you got started. Before you came over here, and you were how long were you living in Europe?
Okay, so Denmark about 5 or 6 years. Then I moved over to Switzerland. I went to school in Switzerland and then back home to Denmark for a bit.
Wow.
And then all the way to Point Barrow, Alaska, with 4,000 Eskimos. I was pretty much the first brown person they'd ever seen,
Oh wow.
even though they are brown too.
Yeah. Right.
I'm a different brown. I don't know. So
Hmm.
it was really culture shock, and I got bullied and beat up in school almost every single day.
Oh no.
Wow.
It was really, really tough for me. And so finally I just thought, well, let me learn the Inuit language, let me wear their clothing, let me learn the traditional native Alaskan dances. I
Hmm.
did everything to just try to fit in because, I thought, well, if you can't beat them, join them. I'm just trying not to get my butt kicked
Right.
every time
Right.
I go
Right.
to school. So I'm just trying to like, hey, I'm one of you.
Right.
But
Right.
it was really, really rough. And then when I graduated from high school, I stayed a little bit longer. And then I moved to Santa Cruz, California, because I thought, and Santa Cruz was just something I had seen on somebody's t-shirt one
No.
time when I was vacationing in Hawaii. And I just thought, I'm going to go to Santa Cruz because I saw it on somebody's t-shirt.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
Nice.
So that's how I ended up in Santa Cruz. And shortly after I got there, I had an argument with the person I was staying with, and I ended up homeless on the streets.
Oh no.
Oh
And
wow.
Yeah, much to my mother's dismay, because she couldn't find me anywhere, because I was just like, I'm just trying to survive now.
Right.
And then I got in another rock band, and the rest took off from there. I got a job in a record store and sang in the band, and
Mhm.
slowly got my life together. But it's, I think there's those hardships that really, that's the time you really form who you are, and
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
Sure. I
lessons,
agree.
right?
Right. 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 Yeah.
That's
So
where the
yeah.
strength comes from in your life. So
Right. Oh, I totally agree. So you were in California.
yeah.
Um, so what was it that you liked about California? What was it that you were just like, I'm going to be here for a while, or what was it? What kind of work did you? Because we realized that you were an actress for a little bit too.
Yeah, so from Santa Cruz, that lasted about 3.5 years. Then I broke up with my surfer boyfriend, and you have to have one of those. No,
Right.
Okay.
no, I mean girls. Then I moved to Monterey, dated a bartender, and that was about 2 years. And that was when the traumatic brain injury happened from a freak fall that he
Oh
caused.
no.
And
Oh.
that was when I ended up in the ER, with meningitis, starting to slip into a coma, dying. So once I survived that, that was when the gifts really kicked in, and that was over 30 years ago.
Oh wow.
So, but I wasn't ready for it, because I was on my way to Los Angeles. I'm going to be a big star. I've got my cassette tape. I'm
Mhm.
trying to peddle my cassette tape to A&M Records in Hollywood, you know. So there was a lot going on, during that time, where I was just, okay, I survived. Now I'm going to go be a star in Hollywood. Ended up homeless again.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I know, this is starting to be a pattern.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, I will deal with this. This time, at least, I wasn't on the streets. I was actually living in the Motown building. I can say that now,
Uh-huh.
because I
Right.
was
Right.
out then. But I
Right.
lived in the Motown building, on Sunset and Vine. And
Mhm.
I had to hide all my stuff every time everyone came to the office. I was like, no, I didn't sleep here on the sofa all night.
Right.
Wash myself with paper towels in the public toilet. That's not me.
All right. Right.
But made it work. Continued modeling, was very, very successful as a model. Still wasn't using my gifts, was too busy, just working and doing Hollywood. And then it really wasn't till 2010 when I ended up on the Queen Mary, during a convention, and over 15 different ghosts came through and talked to me. And I was like, man, I'm a ghost magnet. Like, I really
Oh
like
no,
it.
that's cool.
Mhm.
Like, they trust me. They're just sitting there talking to me. And then that was when I first saw my first apparition coming down the hallway. And after that, I was like hooked. I just like, I gotta do paranormals. So
Right.
I started my own paranormal team in LA, and we went everywhere.
So you do investigations too then?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Love them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do
Miss
quite a
them.
few
I miss them
too.
so much, because I'm always here, working from home. And I'm like, God,
Mhm.
I'll take anything dusty and haunted at this point.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
awesome.
You start to
Right.
miss it.
Yeah. So what? So that was in California. So what was one of your favorite places that you investigated?
Well, my second home is really the Queen Mary. I've been
Oh
there
yeah.
Yep.
over 40 times. I mean, I was almost staying there every month. I
Mhm.
became, once that happened with that convention and the ghost, I got this relationship going. I mean, I just craved being there.
Mhm.
And when I would walk onto the ship, I would just hear them say, "She's here,"
Mhm.
and we had
That's
this
cool.
relationship. It was just like, I mean, every single room, and I always stayed a different room every time. I have a whole checklist, and I'm like, okay, this room this time, and
Right.
it never disappoints. Something always happens somewhere, and it just, and even interacting with Jackie in the pool area, it just became my second home. And right before I moved here, I think I stayed a whole week at the Queen Mary because I was like, this is the last time I'm going to see the ship. Crying my eyes out. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to go over on, in Florida, because this was home. This was my ship. I mean, you can stay there.
Right.
I mean, other places here in Florida, you can just visit and then they kick you out.
Right. Right.
It's like, this is your home. You can stay as long as you want on the Queen Mary. And so
Right.
it was heartbreaking. It truly was. I was like, this is the final visit after 10 years of going here. So, yeah, I mean, that has a special place in my heart. And now they're back open again. And I'm like, okay, got to save my pennies to fly all the way over there again. But,
Yeah. So I think that I don't know the status of the Queen Mary now. I'm not sure if somebody bought it and they're trying to restore it or what they're trying to do, but it needs to come back. I mean, it's one of the staples of, for the paranormal in itself. I mean, it's just been. Now, have you seen any? Somebody's asking, have you seen the ghost called Jackie on the Queen Mary?
Yes. So Jackie, I mean, I've heard of her. And so I thought, well, let me go down to the pool. That's where she seems to stay. And so I had brought a Raggedy Ann doll and I had set it down and I was getting out, the equipment, and I had my recording. And then I just got fed up because nothing happened, and so I just packed everything up. And when I checked the recording, you can clearly hear a girl whispering, "Let's grab her. Let's grab her." At first, I was like, oh my God, they were plotting to grab me.
Oh, no.
And then I looked at the picture I had taken, and there's me, and there's the doll. And I was like, oh my God, they wanted to grab the doll.
Right.
And I thought, that's so cool. It was in real time. But then I got sad because, I mean, how are the little ghost hands going to grab a doll?
Sure.
Right.
And I was like, oh. So she was there, obviously, and that EVP was remarkable.
Right.
So that was all I needed. So the other interactions have been the room service guy I saw at 3 a.m. fully decked in 1940s clothing, which they don't even wear. They wear a vest, and it's very modern. So that was the first visual apparition. And then I've had handprints on my sheets, hangers rattling in the closet. One of the rooms I actually got scratched right after I brushed my teeth, which some people said, well, that's weird because the ghosts aren't normally like that, but there were scratches on my arms. So I don't know what happened. That was a weird moment. And then at door 13 or in that area, I took some photos and saw like a dark hulking shadow and then somebody, when I was sitting down by door 13, kept pulling on my shirt and touching. So there's always a lot, the more I went, the more they just got so familiar with me that they just felt very comfortable to interact. And
right. Well, for being there for as much as you were, they were probably, excited when you got there.
Both of us were.
Right.
It's just a beautiful ship. I mean, they play 1930s and 40s music. You feel like you just transform. And there was another time, because there's no smoking. In fact, I usually burn incense when I travel, and somebody knocked and said they were going to kick me out if I burned incense again. So I was very careful not to burn any incense or candles on the ship anymore. But one day I was in the hallway and I'm like, I smell cigar smoke. And knowing that there's none of that allowed, I was like, oh my God, I wonder if it's Winston Churchill walking through,
Right.
Sure.
Exciting. But I mean that, and then there was another room M001, which that room actually tried to kill me.
Oh no.
I know it sounds weird, but it's a very small room. And all of a sudden I woke up and at 1 o'clock past checkout, because I had passed out from diesel fumes and my eyes were watering and my lungs were like burning. And so I called the ship and they're like, you're supposed to check out. I said, I'm sorry, I passed out. The room tried to kill me. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I'm going to the doctor now and I'm going to get a report. And I sent them the report. I said, you may have a lawsuit on your hands. I don't want to sue the ship, but
Right.
the room had diesel smell. So they actually flew in. I mean, they took it very seriously. They flew in 3 engineers from Ohio, came in to check, and they're like, we have no fuel. We have nothing running. I said, but I'm telling you, that room tried to kill me. So I wrote it off. Another time before I left, they told me, yeah, there was a family staying there, and 3 boys had that room to themselves, and they left in the middle of the night with scratches all over them. I said,
Oh, wow.
I told you there's something very evil about that room. And it's a super small, weird room. It's not even fancy. It's gross.
Right.
But I just thought, let me just try this because this is,
Yeah, sure.
knocking down the list.
Mhm.
Right.
And so I'm like, yeah, that is definitely the room that will kill people. So M001, if you guys want an experience, that room will never be rented out again. Not probably now.
Yeah.
Or be
Well,
overbooked.
it sounds like I mean, you were really totally into the paranormal back when you started out, and I guess I was guilty of not realizing how much paranormal you actually loved.
Oh my
And yeah, because when other mediums talk with other mediums, I mean, it's kind of like that's kind of the focus, and I guess I just never realized that you had all these experiences, and I guess there was a reason why I have you on the show. There are no coincidences. So
Yeah.
So talking to you about this, is there now talking a little bit about I'm kind of felt need to ask you, or being led to ask you, talk a little bit about haunted Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it goes hand in hand. My experience with Hollywood, I mean, obviously I spent more time in front of the camera versus behind the REM pod or the cage.
Right.
I ran around a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was in that state of mind for filming and modeling and shooting and acting, I wasn't really going, oh, this place feels haunted. This feels
Right.
After all that happened, then I was like, oh, I'm the kind of person, I'm so sensitive. I can drive by. I connect a lot with buildings. So
Yep.
I can also connect and go, something happened in that house. There's a person that died there.
Yep. Yeah.
By driving by, I already know what places. So it's uber sensitive. But I know that Hollywood definitely has. In fact, I even tried to get the Houdini house for my team. Because I was really trying to get a lot of. I did do the Pasadena catacombs with a team, and I don't know. I think because it was still the type of evening where people were going to clubs, and so there's a hole right there where you can hear people walking by on the sidewalk. So if there's too much tainting of evidence, I just get pissed off and I pack up my stuff. I leave.
Yeah.
Point. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm going to sit here and try to figure out that's a cricket. Oh, that's a rat. I'm done. I need a pure place where I can get absolute evidence. And if there isn't, I'm out.
Sure, that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, it sounds snobby, but it's like, what's the point? You're going to have to sit and decipher what's a human.
Well, I have that same problem when I'm using my fancy equipment. If it's too many people, too much stuff, I'm like, nah, this isn't working. Out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we did my other absolute favorite place was it was a 9-hour drive up to Sacramento, but Preston Castle, which is a boys' reformatory. And right as soon as I got there, this little ghost boy started following me around and poking me on the shoulder. To the point where I was like, okay. And then I kept ignoring him until he started poking me so hard that I screamed out, ow! And everybody, what happened? I said, this little boy, he just keeps poking me. And they're like, well, tell him to stop. I'm like, I don't really mind, but it just shocked me that he just won't keep doing this.
Right.
And then I heard a whistle, and ghost water dropped on my shoulder at another point. And then I actually captured, when we were doing the walkthrough before sunset, I captured a little blurry boy running across right in front of me.
Oh,
on,
wow.
Wow.
on a photo. It's like really freaking good. So I was like, okay, I love this place. It doesn't disappoint.
There you
Right,
go.
right.
You
There's a
know,
lot of places in California. The Winchester House is another one that I would really like to go to. I've never been there.
Me neither.
My sister had an experience there when she was younger, when she visited there. So it's kind of been on my bucket list. I was just at the Whaley House in San Diego.
ooh,
Yeah, and that was in itself was really pretty cool. I mean, that was on my bucket list. So yeah, that was. I
yeah.
mean, so there's some great places around in California, but let's talk about some cool places in Florida where you live.
I was afraid you were going to ask that. Oh, because I've been working so much for so many years that I honestly don't get. I mean, I do get out. I force myself to do road trips and explore. But I went to the most obviously famous and most obvious is St. Augustine.
Sure.
However, I've been there twice. I did go to that the fort, and I went through the tour. Nothing. Came back at night. Some teens were sitting and drinking beer on the wall. So I was like, you know what? I can't work with these conditions. I'm out.
Right.
And I stayed at the most haunted hotel. Nothing happened there. So and then I went to the lighthouse. It was daytime, so of course people are running up and down and
Right.
too much interference. Nothing there. Apalachicola supposedly has this haunted hotel, so I stayed there. Now this is where it gets crazy because I went there with my husband, and he's not a believer. He's a full-on skeptic. So he's right when I walked up to the hotel, and it's a Victorian house that's been broken down into different rooms, the door opens by itself. The main door to get in the lobby, and I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it's paranormal, but it is weird that right when I walk up, the door just creaks open.
Right.
So the owner says, yeah, I don't really go. I always like to look at rooms before I get a room. And so she goes, here, you take the key. I'm not going up there. I thought,
no.
This might be good.
Right.
You take the key. So I go up and I beeline it to this room that's kind of like in a weird A-frame, like the ceiling goes crooked, He stays behind to look at old pictures in the hallway. So I thought, well, let me go check out the room. I'm the boss anyway, so I will go look. And I go to the back of the room. There's this little dark corner with like a little creepy, door. So I walk over there, and all of a sudden I say, is this where you guys hide? Because suddenly I feel a little boy and a girl as a medium. So I say, is this where you guys hide? And then I think nothing more of it. And I walk back to the hallway, and my husband goes, oh my God, did you hear that? I said, what? I was way in the back there. He goes, I swear a little child just said, come and find me.
Oh.
And I said, what? I just asked them if this is where you hide. Do you realize what just happened? Like, it's real,
That's cool.
He's like, I said, they were playing hide and seek in real time. He's like, what? You're joking. I said, no. So that was pretty cool. Two
is cool.
things. And obviously that changed his belief.
Right.
I thought, wow, that was like, two separate things. So that was really cool. But that was the gist. I ended up not getting the room. I took a room with a jacuzzi, and nothing happened. So
right.
No,
Do you find going to? Let me ask you. Do you find going to like a haunted location or someplace, even if you're on vacation or whatever? And like me, like I'm like you in that sense, where you could drive by a building and say, yeah, I know that's haunted. I know that's haunted. I know, that's always been that way with me. But when you go to a place, do you think that the frequency often changes?
Yes.
And so where it would be like somebody listening to a radio really loud at one day, and then the next day you can barely hear it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the frequency. Does that make sense? Where it changes, and so that some of the aspects of the haunting might not be as strong as you did say last week, or something. Right.
Right. I mean? And going back to the Queen Mary, I've always wanted to share it with people. I brought my son, I brought my mother, and I'm like, oh my God, stuff's going to happen. Nothing happens.
Oh
And now
no.
I'm looking like a crazy person. I want to show off my haunted place and nothing happens. And I'm like, I started realizing that the ghosts like certain people. And ghosts are also very shy. And I can feel them standing in the corner, but it's almost like, yeah, I'm not going to perform for you tonight. So they have their moments and who they feel comfortable with, just like regular living people do.
Sure.
So yeah, so sometimes stuff is super active and sometimes absolutely nothing happens. And so I think it's good to go to several, the same place many times because you're going to get different results.
Right.
Sure.
And I think it's important to do repeat places rather than just go, oh, this place isn't haunted. I'm out. I'm going to the next place because you never know.
I love to repeat.
It could be a bad day,
Right. I think there's a lot of people, and there's quite a few paranormal teams right now that, they go to one place and all of a sudden they don't get anything, and then, they don't go back to experience it, but then they say, oh, it's not haunted or it's not this or not that. Sometimes, like you said, you kind of have to go back a couple different times to get a full effect. I mean, if you go back 10 times and nothing happens, then you would probably be like, I'm thinking. And didn't something like that happen to you, Shane, where you went to some place a couple different times and?
Oh yeah, I've had things follow. I've had strangenesses from like the Farrar school. There was weirdnesses there. So. Yeah, it definitely happens. So you go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So we've talked quite a bit about places. Let's talk a bit about your gifts and your mind and how it. I mean, what type of medium? Tell us about your gifts. How do you perceive the world?
Oh my God.
Things like that.
Yes, how do I perceive the world?
Because I'm a psychic as a rock. I mean, literally, I have nothing. People say something like, I don't know, man. My instrument doesn't say there's anything here, so I don't know. Can't help you. So I'm curious always to know when I talk to a medium, what kind of medium are you? How do you interact with the world? How does the world seem to you different maybe than a person would be if they're like me?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have all the clairs.
Sure.
You guys can look them up.
Yep.
It's also broken down into like a physical medium, a spiritual medium. There's like 4 types of mediums as well. I'm all of the 4, as well as I have telekinetic powers. However, I never know when those are going to get triggered and stuff just
that sounds almost a little scary.
It does, because
things might just start moving and you're not ready.
Well, it happens a lot. I don't know why it does it in the stores a lot, but things just start flying off the shelves.
You're a poltergeist agent.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I know I just did that. And the only time it was really weird was I was standing in a psychic fair in LA, and I was going to buy this oil from this woman, and we're going back and forth, and she's waiting for internet for the, the payment. And all of a sudden, 100 feet up in the ceiling, this ring dislodges from a light and comes right down and cuts her on the shoulder.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just like, oh, shit, I know I did that.
Uh-oh.
So I felt so bad. I wasn't going to tell her. I'm pretty sure
it
could have fallen and bounced off the backboard behind her, but it hit her on the shoulder. I'm like, okay. I felt so bad. I'm like, let me get security. I'll watch your booth for you. I felt I was going above and beyond, because I'm like, I don't want to tell her that my gifts and energy just like, because it was so random. It's like, really, you could have fallen anywhere, but you fall right there in front of me after. So I was just, gosh, I don't want to hurt people. And normally I don't. It's just things fly off the shelves. If I wear glasses, my glasses will sometimes just break and the thing will pop out. So I just, again, it happens so randomly that I don't really feel I need to sit and harness it or figure out how to work with it, because it's one of those weird, freaky things that I just let it be. And when it comes forward, it comes forward.
Sure.
Right. Did you find it easier to do your paranormal and being a medium and exploring, or did those two come to meet yet? when you were doing your paranormal stuff?
No, I was heavy. I mean, I went out and spent like $3,000 on equipment. I had everything. And then my friend's like, "You don't need the equipment." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I do. I do." And then
That's what I was saying.
yeah, and then after a while, I'm like, "Let me just try. It might be fun to see what I pick up." And then we check it against the equipment. And then that became a thing. And now the equipment, like honestly, I pulled it out last month and it was all corroded.
Right,
no.
right.
Because I haven't changed the battery. I haven't used it in 10 years. And I'm like, well, that was a waste. But I never knew it was going to go that way,
Sure.
that
Mhm,
it was
of
going to
course.
become the instrument that now I don't need anything. And I love picking up. I pick up so much more detail than,
Right.
a little light on a thing can. So yeah, I mean, I love, and I did join a paranormal group out of Tampa that called me and needed me for a case. And then sometimes when people come, because people come for house cleansings to me and paranormal stuff, and then sometimes I include the team in there, and I'm like, I've got a case here that's beyond mediumship. We need to go in. So there is a lot of back and forth like that, but most of the time the paranormal cases turn out to be something that can be explained, and it's not
Sure.
that paranormal.
Yeah.
So
Mhm, mhm.
much to my, I mean, I'm sure the owners are happy, but I'm a little bummed. I
Right.
really wanted your house to be haunted.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I understand.
Right. Being able to do that is like being able to walk up to a building or an old house or an old, whatever. It's just all that stuff comes at you really fast, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
like I don't know if you get images. When do you get images like beforehand, like a couple days beforehand, or like a week, or because sometimes when I do my stuff, I'll get stuff the day before or
Yeah.
right before I go to bed, and I'll
Yeah.
get all these images and all this information. And like the other night, I had that happen, and I was like, "Why am I getting?" And it was I was like a lot, and then I forgot that I was doing a virtual mediumship walkthrough with another paranormal group the next night after I got off work, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And it was a
Right.
Civil War place, and it was all this, and so I'm like, why am I getting all these pictures of men in uniform, and and I was like, so when do you usually get your gifts? When do you receive them?
Anywhere from the night before, usually the night before, because that's when I'm
Hmm.
really heavily focusing in on stuff, and then it's very instant. And so I like that more because then I know, okay, that pertains to that. But I mean, I get stuff when I'm showering, brushing my teeth, and that becomes complicated because it's like, oh crap, who's this information for? Who did I just think about? What was I looking at?
Right,
So then
right,
I have to
right.
go back now and
Sure.
figure out, because again, you get so much information, and if you're not right there with, where does that go? Now you've got this dead information that you're just walking around with. And occasionally I put it on Facebook, like, does this apply to anyone? Because somebody was
Right.
going on a plane and it's going to crash, and everybody starts panicking. It's like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. Just try to think, who's going on a plane, immediately. And there was a couple, I saw some visions and things, but otherwise I try to keep it to myself because I don't
Mhm.
want to create a panic.
Right, right. I've learned that I've had to try to keep if I'm supposed to, kind of search or seek out something like this. Usually, the opportunity presents itself the next day or the next week,
Yeah.
and then once I meet the person, that image pops into my head immediately when I see them, and so I know, okay, that's for this person. And
Good.
so
Yeah.
I automatically log it, and then it's like a file cabinet. You know what I mean? And then if I see
Right.
that person, and I may not see that person for a month, but I've had that happen where it's been months, and then I ran into this person, and the first thing that I thought of was, oh, I remember that. That was a couple months ago when I had that. And then
Yeah.
I would
Wow.
ask that person, and she would be like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And so I know that there's some type of structure to it. Yeah, Shane, you probably wouldn't want to live in our brain for at least an hour.
Well,
It would
I just want to
it
go
would-
in and explore for a little bit.
yeah, no.
That's about it.
There's too many. There's way too many doors.
Because for me, I just walk around in the dark. It's like, I don't know, if I can't see it, touch it, feel it, taste it, smell it,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. But
You're
Right.
better off, I swear, sometimes, because once
Yeah.
you right, Jay? It's like
Yeah.
once you get this, it's like, oh my God, make it stop.
See, I would just
Right,
like to know
yeah.
where to put my equipment, I'd be
Yeah.
like, all right, where's the ghost sitting
Yeah.
right now?
Right,
Let me
right,
set my
yeah.
equipment right there.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's one thing too is that's a newer thing, and I put my services up there for paranormal teams that need a medium but can't have them be right there in person. I do
Right.
virtual. The virtual just as good.
Right.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And it was just, and when we were talking about energy frequencies and stuff like that, when I had done that virtual a couple nights ago for old house in Gettysburg, the energy kept shifting from room to room, and I would tell them, place your equipment there, and then something would happen, and nothing would happen. I'd say, okay, now it's time that you got it. This is where it's gone. It's like wavelengths, and it was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. But for a paranormal person, for somebody who's investigating who doesn't use gifts or have gifts,
That would be helpful.
mediums are I'm telling you, are helpful. I mean, it's not like we know the whole answers. I mean, we don't know everything because it's almost like a puzzle that we have to put together.
Exactly. It's a lot of little tidbits of things, little pieces, and then we have to start putting them in there and formulate. I mean, nobody's 100% accurate, but
Right.
it definitely adds to the equipment to get those kind of
Sure.
it's hot
Right.
spots or a little more information. I think the usage of mediums with paranormal teams has definitely become more prevalent.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that 10 even 15 years ago, that probably wouldn't really even think too much about it.
Right.
Meshing those two together. But now that they're meshed together, everybody's like, oh, why didn't I do this before?
Right. It wasn't
You know?
time. I mean,
Right. And everything is shifting, and the time change and everything's just the way the world is now. It's just things are just kind of backwards.
Yeah, it's
and
messed
weird.
up. The world's
It is.
messed up right now.
Everything is
Well,
back. Yeah. So, talk a little bit about. I read the story on your webpage, and you were electrocuted.
I know that one was as if the brain injury wasn't bad enough. I mean, that's
Right.
already bad luck and near death. Then it's such a freak. I don't know, freak thing. Nothing is ever normal for me. Nothing can ever just
Well, I have
broken
that, and I'm not a
or,
medium.
broken something or so yeah, I was having sciatica pain, and so I went to my chiropractor to get the TENS unit where they put these little stickers and then they give you a little electric shock. So I wasn't feeling much. So he actually turned it up to 100, which is pretty much unheard of, to put it that high.
Right.
But I'm like, I'm not feeling any electricity. So when it was time, you're supposed to turn it down in increments, not 100 to 0.
Right.
But I guess he got lazy because nobody had ever had it that high, that it was a lot of increments to turn it down to. So when he got done, I was like, it feels a little weird here back there. And he made some comment, and then he just put a Band-Aid on and kind of left. And so I left. I didn't think much about it. I was going to take a bath, but I decided to sit on the computer. I had one of those old school computers, where you have a desktop and you have that other box on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my knee accidentally touches the box on the floor. And suddenly it felt like 1,000 bees inside my rib cage, all trying to get out at the same time.
Oh my.
And I'm like, this feels a little weird. And then I felt a weird sensation on my back, and I went to touch it, and it's wet. So I run into the toilet. I look in the mirror, and there is a big round char mark right on my sciatic.
Oh.
All gooey. And I'm like, what just happened? Then I put it together, being the scientific brainiac that I am and a little bit of a geek. I was like, I must have had that charge in my body from the chiropractor's office. And when my knee touched that, it must, because, energy must come out where it goes in.
Right.
So the knee triggered all that electricity, which was what I was feeling, and then it shot out of my back.
Wow.
And so it left a big burn mark, which is why now I should have made a little electrical, like a little charge tattoo.
Right.
I
Right.
a little tattoo of a star because I needed something to cover this big round scar that had been
Oh
left.
no.
And
Right.
it looked really ugly. And I didn't really want a tattoo back there, but I'm like, I can't run around with a big circle on my back. So
Mm-hmm.
so that was, and then after that, I realized I would walk around and like street lamps would go off, things would blink, and also its
Right.
electricity would respond to me. So I was like, oh my God, now I have something else wrong with me.
Right. Well, it sounds like it sounds like you just had a plethora of things in your life that just kind of triggered one thing after the other. You
Yeah.
know, do you know where you get your abilities from? I mean, what side of the family?
Nobody. I wish I could say I come from Salem, a long line of witches or something, but
Right.
there is no, both of my parents were doctors. And so nobody was really that frame of mind. However, there was a weird incident where, because I lived in a very, very big Victorian house back home in Denmark. And I don't know how it came about, but all of a sudden my mother was, when grandma and grandpa went out, one day I went down to the living room and all the chairs were stacked on top of the table. I was like, what? Why didn't you tell me this before? Our house was haunted all along. Like, that was so cool. She was like, yeah, I was freaked out. So it seems like there was stuff going on at my house, growing up. I never noticed it, but my mother did, and hearing from my mother. But I mean, she believed in that stuff, but UFOs, Bigfoot, everything like that. But
Right.
I mean, she
Sure.
had no gifts. But I think my mother, because my mother and I were so close, if I had a headache, like I would call her and she's like, I've got a headache. I go, I've got a headache. So we were just like twins.
Right.
We were
Right.
interchangeable.
Right.
So I think, she would feel when I was sad, but that's not really a gift. That was just an extreme bond.
Right.
So you
Right.
said that after your brain injury, that's when most of it started?
Yes. And finally, there wasn't computers back then in 1990. So it wasn't till years later I was able to finally sit and Google, because I lost all sense of temperature, pain. I couldn't feel pain anymore. I could hear wires inside walls. I mean, my hearing, everything became so hypersensitive
Right.
Yeah.
that I was just like, what happened? Nobody ever really sat me down and explained what happened to me they were just concerned I was almost dying and I had meningitis, but
Yep.
my brain got infected and inflamed. And, so when I finally sat and looked at the hypothalamus and everything back there at the base of the skull that was affected when I slammed. And then of course, when you slam the back, your brain bounces into the front, and I
Oh
had
yeah.
frontal lobe damage, and then the pineal gland. I
Mhm.
was like, this all makes sense now why this suddenly came
Sure.
out.
Right. How long did it take you to fully recover from that? I mean, where you were, where things weren't so chaotic. You know what I mean?
2 years.
Really?
Wow.
2 years of, I mean, I could not feel pain. So I would step out of the shower completely red from scalding hot water. I couldn't feel temperature. I would be cutting food and I would look and there's blood all over the cutting board because I'd cut my finger. I didn't even feel it.
Wow.
Right.
So,
That's
and then
crazy.
if I couldn't chew, I couldn't swallow. So I got down to 108 pounds.
Oh wow.
Super, super skinny because I was afraid to eat out of fear of choking because I could not
Mhm.
feel chewing. And so, I
Right.
mean, it altered my life. My mother was dragging me around to every doctor. They couldn't find anything wrong. So finally, I just learned to live with, these lack
Sure.
of sensations and things. And it was really, really difficult, but it altered my whole life. And so finally, I was just so fed up. I thought I'll just deal with it. I can't feel pain. I can't feel heat. I can't feel anything. And then I can overhear things. And that's how my life was just going to be. And then a
Right.
few
Right.
things after 2 years came back, the taste and the swallowing, and the hearing never was normal again. And I can't regulate temperature. And So a few things came back, but a lot of things never did, and I had to just alter my life to live like that.
Right,
Sure.
right. Well, that's just an incredible, confession to be able to, talk about all that. I mean, even going through all that in that instance, and what you had to change, and the things you had to change your life, and I just, and kudos to you. I mean, that's
Yeah, you've done
it
good.
yeah, and that takes some strength,
Thank
and
you.
that is very, very awesome that you are able to overcome that.
Thank you.
Um, so speaking of, a little bit more on your gifts, and when you overcame after 2 years of this tragic event, and then you had to alter your life, what was the first thing that you really wanted to get into after you realized that some of this stuff was coming back, and this is what I want to do now? And when did you realize that that moment came when I want to do this? This is my life. This is what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to, give them readings. I want to, reach out to them, and reach out to their loved ones. When was that moment more prevalent for you?
So the moment came, I was starting to get into the paranormal in 2010. I was like, this is kind of fun. Oh, the ghosts like me. They want to chat with me. It wasn't, I started doing it really in about 2014. I got a little more serious with it. I was doing readings. My parents knew what I was doing. And I say that because I started doing it just randomly to see if I had any gifts, and did all these readings for all these
Hmm.
people. And I remember my mom saying, Dad and I are so proud of you and what you're doing. And I was like, wow. And I didn't realize how significant that would be until 2 months later. I lost both of them within 2 weeks of
Oh
each
wow.
Oh,
other. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm so glad that they passed knowing what I did. Like, what if I had started this later and they would never know?
sure.
Hmm.
I mean, I was trying to find positive in the fact that I lost the thing that meant the most to me in my life, my whole world. But then I started realizing, you know what? I have so much pain from losing my mother, because we were just, like I said, twins,
Right.
that I was like, you know what? I think I have to help other people
Hmm.
remove their pain. That's the only thing that's going to really, because nobody can take my pain away. But
Right.
Yeah.
if I help other people indirectly, that is healing me in its own
Hmm.
way. So that's when I became obsessed with helping people. And then with that, my mother helps me on all the readings. So we have found a way to be together again, and
Hmm.
work every day. We work together. So, so it was very profound, but it was at that moment I'm like, I know now what I'm supposed to do.
Hmm.
I'm ready for it. I've had these gifts for so long, but I just did not want them. I really didn't.
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
can relate to that. Yeah, yeah. I ran from mine, so
It's just like, and it's just like the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will come.
yeah, that's so true.
mhm.
And finally I sat down one day under the stars and I said, you know what, I get it. I get this whole journey, my brain injury, my parents passing. I am ready. Teach me. And then it all just flooded like crazy, and it was
Hmm.
overwhelming for many months of just nonstop awakening, and getting all this information. And then it calmed down and I was like, oh, that was a lot. It's like that scene in the Matrix where everything is just flying by you really
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
you're like, oh my god. And I was just like, I don't want this after all, in the middle of all that.
See, I want to try it for a month at least.
Oh my God,
Like, take it
it's
back.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
crazy. It's
it
crazy.
is. But then it does calm down. That's the
It does.
beautiful thing. It does, like, the waves go down and then it's like, oh, phew, I made it.
Right,
And now I'm okay and everything's leveled out. I even know how to turn it on and off, which is a
right,
wonderful thing to know how to do.
right,
'Cause
right.
then I can have some of my own thoughts, and. So yeah, now it's everything's balanced out, and I don't work as much because I'm trying to have a nice balance of
Hmm.
work and play, because it's mostly work and like 10% play. So
Right, right,
now I kind of done this here, and it's like more V time.
right, right. So take us through a day in the life of Valentina.
Oh God. Pretty funny. Yeah, I mean anything goes. I try to go to bed at a decent hour and then get up early. Uh, really, before my clients come, it's very important that I get everything done, errands, whether it's on the phone, computer. I have to have everything clear that involves me so that I can have 100% focus on my client and not be
Right,
sitting
right.
there going, did I mail that? I
Yeah,
have,
Right,
I
right.
understand.
I need to be fair to them. So, and there's days where I'm sick and just too tired and I have to reschedule because I've learned also that I'm also a long COVID survivor. So now I have long COVID disease, and there's good days and bad days. And when there's good days, the week is full of clients and I
Mhm.
work my butt off. And when I suddenly feel it coming on and I'm having trouble breathing, I have to, reschedule and clear out my week. So, and then I go work out and I take spinning classes. There's a lot of errands. I walk my dog. There's a lot going on because I also have I'm also a minister and I own another business. So I own two other businesses that I have to constantly. So there's a lot. I mean, my life is like nonstop. So much stuff comes up. Like it's just
It sounds like
a
it.
circus. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, I wake up and I'm like, woo, it's Monday.
Yeah.
And then by noon, some weird thing has happened, or somebody's called me, they need an emergency reading, or the tire's flat, or, I mean, I just never know. Like, I have the best attitude, and by the afternoon, I'm like, what is going where I've lost
Right,
control of my life. It's like a
right, right,
circus. So it's very random, but I kind of like the chaos of my life because um I can handle it.
right.
I don't think anyone else can handle my life.
It,
Don't
it keeps it keeps you busy, that's for
It
sure.
does. It keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, yeah, and nowadays, I mean, if it's keeping you on your toes, then there's also it's a good distraction. I mean,
I like busyness. Yeah, because
hmm
I would rather have that than I'd rather have chaos than sitting and being bored out of my skull.
right, right. Yeah. So you said you had another business. Is there something else that you would like to share?
Oh, well, I mean, I sell gemstone jewelries online. And then I decided after surviving COVID, I kind of went into like, I'm unstoppable. So I decided to become an ordained minister and do weddings.
Wow.
Very random, I know, but I like to just sometimes have little extra things just to see if I can do it. And I did a
hmm
wedding on 222222.
Oh,
Right.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and so I was like, it was just the best. It was on the beach, and oh my God, it was so. I was a little bit nervous because it was my first wedding, but I just be yourself, and I was, and I made people laugh, and the bride and groom loved it, and I was like, I did my first wedding. It's so cool.
So, do you
Right,
study
right.
numerology?
No,
No. Okay. I just noticed you'd mentioned because I'm one of those people that some randomly always see like 11:11, 1:11. Just you
Yeah.
glance at the clock and it's like, oh, it's 11:11.
yeah,
I
I
see
think
those every day.
that's
I do too.
numerology. That's more just like angel numbers. That's like a
Right.
sign from the universe. Numerology is that thing where you have to do your birthday and then minus
Yeah.
something and plus something, and then you get
Yep.
Right, right,
the number.
right. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. I see numbers all the time, every day.
Yeah,
I mean,
numbers
it's
are good.
just been, you know, but so you said your husband is a skeptic. Is he more of a believer now, or does he revert back to being, yeah, I don't believe that?
When he met me, I thought, oh dear God, I got to tell him I'm a medium. Here
Oh
we go.
no.
He might leave. I was like, well, I got to tell you, I'm a medium. I'm a psychic. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. And now we talk about it. He goes, yeah, I didn't really quite believe you, but he's heard enough of all the stories and seen the evidence,
Sure.
that he's like, holy cow, you're the real deal. I'm like, well, thank you. I said, I didn't know I really had to prove myself to you. You should just trust me.
Yeah, right, right.
But I get it. It is unusual to have a spouse that's a psychic, and it is. I mean, it's not for everyone. It's
Yeah.
He
difficult
can't
because
get away with anything.
no. Well, that's the
No.
other thing. I'll be like, I said, I know where you went. He's like, how did you know that? Or I'll buy him something and he's like, I was just going to buy that for myself. I'm like, who are you married to?
Right.
Yeah.
He
Right.
just got a new job. And by the time he left his interview, I texted him and I said, congratulations, you got the job. He goes, I just left. I go, congratulations. 2 hours later, he's like, I got the job. I go, who are you married to?
That's awesome.
That's
So
awesome.
it is fun, but he's like, I try to stay out of, his mind. I don't read everything.
Right.
I mean, my friends know they can't lie to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I do the same for my wife. I don't. She does. She's not a believer in any of it.
I'm not sure
either.
I'd want to enter a
you
woman's
know.
mind.
Yeah.
The things that go on in there probably can't be.
We are psycho. No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. My wife probably is.
And she's probably sitting there watching you do this podcast.
Oh yeah, she's somewhere near, I'm sure.
It's like delete block.
Yeah, right. In your own house, Shane. That's pretty
I know.
sad. But yeah. So I mean, having a loved one that's either a believer or not a believer, it provides its own challenges. I mean, if you've got somebody who believes or doesn't believe or whatever, it's just. It is what it is, but
Right.
It depends. The person that you're married to, I mean, I knew who I was supposed to be married to,
Yeah.
and that was a given. And, so my wife is on her own path, you know what I mean? So it's not my job.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I just kind of let it, be the way it is. But there's other people that I know that are paranormal husband and wife, and they that's all they do, and that's
yeah. We do a lot of investigations together,
Yeah.
my wife and I.
Yeah, it must be nice.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that. I'm like,
right.
drop me off there. I'll see you later.
Oh no.
Right. So, before we go, let's talk a little bit about one more investigation that you were on that actually meant the most to you.
Oh. Well, I guess I have to go back to the Preston Castle one because, we had that place for like 10 hours. And just because of the interaction, well, and I forgot to there was another spirit box session upstairs after the whistle, which kind of did something to me because all of a sudden I heard this woman's voice come through and say, stop it. And I say, you hear me saying, are they hurting you? And a man's voice goes, not hurting her. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I felt like I was talking to them just on the other side of this wall and I wanted to help them. And I felt this woman was being held back or something. And then this guy steps in and lies and says, not hurting her. I could feel the need to help these people. And I remember leaving feeling like, wow, I wanted to help so bad and I couldn't. And the frustration of not being able to help because they have their own thing going on over there,
Right.
And I was like, God, this is the first time I have felt so helpless. I was unable to help this woman and I could hear it. She was like, stop it. I mean, the way she said it, it was like somebody was doing something to her. And I didn't like it. I didn't like being that helpless. And that probably touched me the most was like, I can help people in this world walking around, but I could not help this person. I didn't like that,
Now, have you ever ran into that before or just that one time?
Just that one time,
Oh, okay.
I mean, usually when people are talking through the spirit box or interacting, it's very delightful and I can hear the joy in their voice. But this was the first time I was like, what does one do in a situation like that? Just go home and go to sleep and let them deal with it. I mean, I guess you kind of
probably not much you can do.
No, it's just like it's not my battle, it's that kind of a thing. It's like, all right, but there's time. I mean, any interaction with ghosts and things, I can't just like lay down and crash and go to sleep. I am up for hours walking around, pondering over things. It really affects me a lot. It really does. And I just go over things and it isn't just all right, another case, back to sleep. It really, like, all the cases sit with me and touch me in some way. So
that's good that they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot of there's people that do this and go investigate and everything, and then they can go home and go to sleep. I mean, they
Right.
can, um, but I guess in that aspect of helping, my motto's always been I like to help the living as well as the dead, and that is, speaks volumes to wanting to help somebody, like you said, I can help people on this side,
Right.
but I when you couldn't help the person on the other side, and I've ran into that a little bit before, but helping somebody cross over because this woman was really mad or upset for something the man did, but I don't think I've ever experienced that where I felt helpless. But I always revisit it. I would go back and revisit it.
Right.
So, but because of the fact that it was 10 minutes from my house, I could revisit this old building and,
Sure.
kind of work on somebody. Oh, so I see you have a little friend there.
Yeah.
It's bring your pet to work day.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh yeah, and you have your cat. See, I don't have, my cats are upstairs, and they wouldn't be happy if
My
they were on
cats are
TV.
always on the show because they won't leave me alone.
Right. I think there's been a couple times where we've had guests that have had cats and,
Yep.
blocked the shot, and so to speak, but gotta love animals,
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
but yeah. So, we're about ready to wrap up. So if you want to kind of, talk about your website, share your website, or you tell people can find you.
How they can find you and
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
Yes, I'm on Jay's friend list on Facebook. You can find me there. Psychic Medium Valentina on Facebook, the public page. Instagram as Valentina the Danish Medium. And then you can just look at my website is psychicmediumvalentina.com. I do in person, I do video readings or texted readings. So, and those work all just as well. But you can go there. The rates are there, and you can book there if you want, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so this was really awesome and so fun.
Yes, this was very fun. Yeah,
Long time in the
yeah,
making.
Yes.
Ago.
Yeah. It's been fantastic talking with you, and I can't
Yeah,
say
that's
this
great.
enough to thank you for being on, and your story is still amazing, and all the stuff that you've overcome is isn't it just awesome, and that your strength is right there, and I can see
Thank
that.
you. Well, I feel like I'm constantly being tested. It's like, God, you're still trying to take me down. It's like, no,
That's karma.
devil is not going to get me.
Right. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. This has been a great show, and we have a special show tomorrow night, Monday at 6, and then we have another one next Sunday at 7. So hopefully everybody will tune in for that show. We want to thank Valentina again, and I want to thank Shane,
Yep.
and I want to say have a fantastic Sunday.